Maybe this video is like fan service in a way, where this is a memory I have of comics that just made me so incredibly happy. And I'm curious, first off, if you have had this same memory, if you've had one of these kinds of moments for comics. And then I want to kind of turn it into, how can we recreate this memory more for other people? And what does this have to do with binging and all the rest? So let's get into it. Hey everybody, this is Perch. When I was young and started collecting comics, this would be the early '80s. I started reading comics a lot, and I read comics early because my parents were of the mind that comics would help your reading skills. That basically, my father had this perspective of anything that would get you reading is a good thing. So I had these little tiny, they're like square books, and they were classic, like Treasure Island and 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea and everything else. And every page had a picture. It was like a text on one side, picture on the other, just like and the thick books, like 100, pictures, and they weren't often that great, but it was great because it was like it was visualizing the words. So when I was young, and I'm talking like five, six, I'm reading books that were way beyond my grade level. And part of how I was able to manage it is I was, if I didn't understand a word, which is happening all the time, I'd look at the picture, I'd try and figure it out. It's like, oh, okay, what does a ballast mean? It's like, oh, okay, here's kind of a picture showing something. I'll bet that's it. It wasn't foolproof, but it helped. And so my parents were very encouraging about comics. They just loved comics, and they loved me reading them. So I quickly consumed. And I would go to the newsstand, I would go to the grocery store, the gas station, whatever, and I'd read the comic while, my parents would be farting around. And I remember that, you could kind of head into the gas station quickly. Your father would be fueling up the car. And then my dad was one of those obsessive weirdos who would want to like wash the windows and like check the tires when he was filling up with gas. And so that would be enough time for me to read like one comic. And then if I could optimize, I could get two comics down and then figure out what third and fourth comic I didn't have time for that I wanted to buy. So then it was, it's like early stage piracy in a weird way. No, it wasn't though. Anyway, so I remember, that then my eyes opened up a little bit when I realized there were comic shops and there was a direct market, and there were comics that existed in the direct market that didn't exist on the newsstand. And I'm not talking about dirty comics or anything else, but like, for example, Power Pack went to the newsstand only. This was much, much later, but Power Pack used to be, sorry, I've got this all backwards. Power Pack used to be on the newsstand and then went direct market. There was a couple comics that kind of went this way, well, where they were only sold there. It basically they weren't as accessible on the newsstand. You could still find them, as I recall, in some place, and I was never sure. Even to this day, I'm not sure, why what went where, with shops, with comics. And I have this very intense memory. This is now much much older. I'm firmly in the comic collecting mode, and I'm everything is happy. And I think I was I don't know. I don't know what age I was, but definitely a teenager. And I think I was driving at that point or starting to drive. I don't recall exactly what else was going on. But the X-Men was running this storyline where they went to Genosha for the first time. And Mark Silvestri was doing the art. Chris Claremont is on the story. And I think Rick Leonardi did some of it too. But anyway, I X-Men came out, and then I was staying kind of in a place away from my house, and so I'd go to the local convenience store, and I didn't get gas there, but I would take a stop there, and you don't buy groceries because everything's so expensive. They had a small run of comics. I remember going in, there's an X-Men issue I hadn't seen before. I'm like, hey, I thought I just bought one like 2 weeks ago. There's a new X-Men issue. All right, and Wolverine looks like he's in bad shape. His power's been taken away. Rogue, it's like, what's going on? It was like crazy. Australia X-Men. And I was like, well, I bought that comic. I was happy about it. I went home. I remember like a week and a half went by, or maybe it was just a week. I don't remember. But I go back into the convenience store, and there's another new issue there. I'm like, what is going on? This monthly series of comics is they're coming out. Like, did something go wrong? And then you start thinking, like, did my place did my town, were they just super backed up and behind? And then I've stumbled into like, I'm heading into the future. What's going on? And then I realized, because it was in the comic somewhere, that they went to shipping every 2 weeks for a period of time. Not too long. I think like 6 issues or so shipped every 2 weeks. And it was like I, I mean, the sun, the clouds part, and the sun comes out. It's like, holy crap! I'm gonna get at that time my favorite comic, X-Men, every 2 weeks. Are you shitting me? Are you? I mean, I was just so happy. I remember like I'm getting twice as much. I remember just like just thinking in his days that some wonderful, I'll use what Larry from Larry's Comics, where some sweet angel had come down and picked my favorite comic and was now going to ship it twice as often. And the art was incredible. I mean, you had really good artists on there. It was a storyline that kind of had a cliffhanger and it was compelling. And I'm like, oh my god! And then some time went by, and I remember it became a summer event for a while, like in the summers, or it was very weirdly planned. Even in my young kind of brain, I couldn't figure out the scheduling was strange. But they basically went for, we're going to do this comic again, X-Men again, and it became kind of a regular thing where they'd ship to a bi-monthly or bi-weekly, I guess is the right word, schedule from time to time, and it was just amazing. And I think about that now because comics are monthly by and large, but then they fool around with the shipping, and it's not a happy thing anymore because the shipping seems totally random. And where things can be given, they can also be taken away. I remember having a similar feeling where like I'm looking forward to this comic, looking forward to it. 4 weeks go by, where's the comic? Oh, 6 weeks go by, eight. What's going on? Even when I was much older, and had run comic shops, was enjoying comics, and I like the Ultimates. It's like, where in the hell is Millar and Hitch's? Where is this comic? Damn it! you know, it's been months now. Where's the freaking comic? I'm now super angry about it. It's like the opposite feeling. I just want this. And you get all the comments. You see it on social media today. Like, why did you solicit this comic until you had like all the comics done? Like you're working with Joe Maggioro, you're working with Art Adams. Like get all the comics in the bank before you start shipping them. Don't you know? Doomsday Clock, Gary Frank. Come on, don't don't start shipping it on issue number 2. Wait till you're like at issue number 10. Get a nice good lead up of comics banked before you start putting them in the market, because these interruptions suck. But it strikes me that as we've entered our new Netflix streaming world, where you can binge shows and you can watch the whole season, you can get really super excited. And I think it's a similar feeling of like you get caught, and it's rarely happened to me, but I remember the first season of Stranger Things. I'm like, I don't know. It's just like, here's something new. I'm interested. Narcos was the same way for me. Ozark, I think I did the same thing. It's infrequent, but I get into the. I'm like, I'm not going to get up off this chair. I'm just going to watch 5 hours worth of this show right now and be really really happy about it. And I think that with comics, there's a couple things. I think one, I think TKO has experimented with the idea of kind of bingeable comics. It doesn't quite work the same way, but man, if you as a big publisher could pick the comics that are the hottest at that particular moment, you get a hot run going. Pay the extra money and plan it. Basically, put out the press release, get the marketing, and say we're going to ship to biweekly for the next 3 months, and we're going to go back to monthly to give you a super summer, and we're just going to get those comics out faster. I think that's a wonderful thing. By contrast, when the comics just randomly ship faster and then ship slower for no apparent reason, I think that's a terrible thing. It all goes to communication. I think that today, if Hickman had some strengths with the X-Men, they kind of had that schedule out there, but it seemed very weird. Plus it was all of them. Like I would love for Marvel or DC to go back to the accelerated shipping schedule, communicated and planned for their hottest books. Like right now, if I'm Marvel, I'd be looking around like, you know what? Let's come out like while the comics were on hold during the pandemic. Why not give old Mr. Stegman and Donny Cates some extra money and say, you know what? Let's come out the gate when comics are able to ship again in June or July. Let's go ahead and do Venom every 2 weeks for the months of June, July, August. Let's make a summer of Venom and just like ship out. So top tier art, no fill-in issues. Let's use this 2 month, 3 month pause to basically get ahead and go ahead and do a special run. Or maybe let's have Jonathan Hickman and Lou or whoever let's go ahead and have you guys go out with this. I don't know. You could do a number of different things, but I think the key with this is I recount this story too because I could still remember, and almost I can remember the convenience store and where I was at the time and the feeling of joy, that strong emotion of just the idea that I was going to be able to get this comic out, faster, more, and what a wonderful thing that would be. And I just, first of all, I'm curious if any of you had that experience. So leave your comments below. Love to hear about it. And then how, the same kind of action, shipping faster than normal, can be a huge positive or a negative, depending basically on just your communication and how well it's planned. It's quite stunning, and it strikes me that with comics, there's so many things you could do to make people super happy and excited and pumped about comics that really don't take much more than kind of basic business sense. But for whatever reason, they don't. It often gets in the way. Anyway, let me know under your comments below. I'm curious if any of you have had a similar experience. Leave me a comment below. Let me know. Like, subscribe, follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Comic Perch. Email me at comicsperch, put an S in there, at gmail.com. And thanks for listening.